Let's open up the new campaign season, pushing both Fredrick out of Silesia into Bohemia, really. I was going to say Austria proper, but Austria proper just starts down here, basically. And what? Henry into Saxony. I got some danger. This is pretty safe, actually. But here, again, the Austrians could come up and start screwing with supply. But now I'm getting supply out of two sources here. So it's a little bit stronger. There might be some advantages. I ignored this depot, just leaving it there. I don't want to lose it. I'm not sure why, but I don't control it anymore, so I can't do anything about it. It's just there forever now. It's like a mercantile center or something, I don't know. And for reaction movements, the Russians took one. They took a loss, actually, but it allows them to start building their depot a little quicker. And the French took one to push forward as well. I think I rolled. Yeah, I rolled for them with this die. Okay. I chose not to do any with the Austrians because I don't want to lose units, and I don't particularly want to charge forward. In particular, I don't want Fredrick to be able to make the attack here, but I'm perfectly fine with the Austrians doing so on their turn, which I believe they will. They have the feeling that, hey, we spent 100%, we should have numerical superiority. Now, what we may find is that we don't have numerical superiority, and we're screwed for this year, you know, and then we have to run away and try to prevent an automatic victory from happening. I don't really like the guesswork aspect in the in the strength increment, you know, where it's secret and you don't know what you're facing, and then you find out, oh wow, they have 4-1 odds on us for somehow. Imagine that. Which could have easily happened. And if I was willing to print more counters or use lots of 4s, maybe I could have incremented the strength even more. I just didn't want to do that because of counter mix, but it's kind of goofy, you know. And if I can mint my own counters, maybe I should be able to mint ones that say more than 8 on them, say something like 20 on them, and it really shocks when they hit. I'm just not sure, but you know, obviously playing solo, I wouldn't have that level of surprise, but I kind of think that I should have just gone with all my resources, certainly as the Austrians, and seen what happens. The danger with that, of course, is I might lose battles just because I have numerical superiority, which is always a weirdness in this system. I don't know what that impacts, you know. So, if Fredrick has a small enough force that can't be overrun, and has a big enough bonus on here, he can ensure that, you know, his 25% or whatever, or even 40% maybe, could be less than the 10% loss when you count in his +3 bonus or whatever. That's where the game gets wonky, and I don't understand. You know, the combat chart does some weird shit. All right, on to the Allies. Started constructing their depot to take Königsberg, and they've got a long way to go setting up depots and everything along the line. If they can get to something like Coburg, then they're in pretty potent position where they can start operating in Prussia. But as long as they have to march through Poland each year, they've got problems. They may not make it, you know. It just takes so long to build that line of depots. And then, but we can leave them set up. Of course, then the Prussians can run and grab some of them and fight me in Poland if need be. Elsewhere, well, Brown moving forward. Now, he's got Rakowski with him as part of his force. Not a huge part anymore. Might not seem like a great idea, except Frederick's not here. It's Henry. I'm willing to let Henry attack me. He doesn't get a bonus. He's penalized on attacks compared to Fredrick. So we might be able to hold things off in Saxony there. The French continuing their march through German states grabbing those up. They're not worth any victory points, but I need them for the supply, and it's cheaper to grab fortresses than it is to build depots, so what the hell. The counter that I don't know what it's for, I'm assuming it's for the battle. I'm using it to mark the battle with. It's kind of weird that it's a Prussian counter, but, and we have Lacy attacking Fredrick. Not the best matchup that you can have, but 22 to 30. That doesn't sound good. We didn't know what we were facing. 22 to 30. That's going to be 2/3. So we're on this chart, and we are at -1. Let's see what that results in. We get a pretty good roll, I think. So the attacker loses 20% of 22. The defender loses 10% in a leader. All right, so we've got 5 losses for the Austrians, 3 for the Prussians. 5 plus 1 initiative is 6. I'm sorry. 5 plus 3 initiative is 8 versus 4. So that means this is, I'm going to do it this way. 4 more captured Austrians and a loss for them. And not a good thing, you know. Fredrick's hard to beat. And we're going to be running 2 hexes away and demoralized. And already you start to see the advantages Fredrick brings to a battle. And why we wanted greater numbers, probably. Because if we're facing big stacks of units, Fredrick's going to start losing large quantities of force. But if his force is too small, it'll start wearing down and attritioning and be defeatable. And also, there becomes the danger of getting that 400% overrun chance. We probably declared an overrun here and found out that we didn't get one, you know. So during the Prussian side of the turn, we're going to test out the theory of Fredrick can go with smaller forces. We'll see how well that works. It's not really smaller, is the thing. So he's got 12, 16, 17 to 13, which means he's still at 1-to-1 essentially, the 100% to 150. But let's talk about what else happened. Building depot here. I left Schwerin behind, and that's why Fredrick has a smaller force. I left Schwerin behind to start building a depot there next turn. Now, I could have reacted with some forces and sent them up there to set up for that instead, but I wanted to try out this procedure, and there's a danger that Schwerin might lose a unit because he's got good initiative, so I would have probably ended up, no, they all have +1 initiative. The French continued pushing on, of course, because the French can almost always force march because their leaders suck. Whatever. To me, that's actually a real problem with the game, is the Fredrick is more likely to lose men even on a short force march. You ought to declare the size of your force march or something, I don't know, before you roll for it. There are other designs that work better than this that came out later. Zucker came up with designs that work better, but they're much more complicated. This is very, very light and simple, and it was innovative for its time. So what do we got here? We're on the 1-to-1, but we're attacking with Fredrick, so that we're on +2 on the table. And I call it 1-to-1. It's a percentage table, so +2, we get a 5. Maybe I shouldn't roll on the board. It's a hard board. 15 to 20, but we lose another leader, so there goes one of our better ones, Brunswick. Not better, but we're running low on leaders. That's definitely a problem in the game. There aren't all that many either. I mean, the campaign may actually run me out of leaders. But now I got to be careful with Fredrick because I don't want to lose either him or Schwerin, to tell you the truth. And so maybe I don't want to engage in battles too much. Okay, so 15% of his 17. We just have to look that up. That's 3 losses. So we get that this way. And, oops. And then for the Austrians, it's 20% of 12, 13, which is also 3 losses. Did I screw something up? I think I did. No. No, what I did. I think I broke the number up too much. Okay, so what that means is we differ by the morale check, which means 2 more surrenders. And the Austrians continue to lose units and continue to fall back. But Prussian leadership losses are a problem, and I've got squirrels playing. Okay. I don't need to show you that. Brown is attacking Henry here. It's essentially a 1-to-1 attack. Let me go over the movements. Lacy managed to recover his demoralization status. You know, I mean, part of me wants to go attack Fredrick and see if I can kill him or something, right? That'd be awesome. There's no rules for Fredrick being semi-immune to damage. So Fredrick historically led from the front, and not heroically as Charles XII did, but he showed himself quite a bit. And he took a number of bullets. His life was saved a couple of times semi-miraculously. Some captures were escaped semi-miraculously. He just led sort of a charmed existence, which there's nothing that handles that. I'm not sure, you know, maybe it's baked into the combat table somehow with his high ratings, but I don't really see that happening here. The big thing is he has to have leaders with him, but although they're aware of this, our numbers are bad. We don't want to lose more forces, so we're heading towards Prague to try to reduce the effect there. French force marched, of course. And no, they didn't. They regular marched. Russians set up for their siege, and we'll take care of that in a moment. But we've got this battle at 1-to-1. However, Brown, although he's pretty good, he's a match for Henry, is what it comes down to. He's a match for Fredrick, actually, as long as he's attacking. And we get a 6, which is a pretty good roll. So we're taking less here, and we were at 16, 22, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. 10% of 28 should be 3, and it is. We'll lose Imperial troops. Yeah. And 20% of his 16, 20, 26 should be painful. That's 6. So it's a 3-point difference. Initiative's the same, so there are 3 captured units. And now we have some Prussian exchange forces in play. Prussians are demoralized and they'll run away. We have a siege established, so we'll roll here. Now, what are my modifiers? It says an adjusted table. Leadership. I believe it's initiative, so we actually have +1 on the table, because there's no Prussian leader there. 5. 6 is a breach. The Austrians like the idea of killing off Russians for Prussians, so we are not going to grant honors of war. The Prussians have the right to surrender. They will do so, even though that may mean giving back more Austrians at the end of the turn. The depot's gone. The city has fallen. And could have reacted with the Prussians, but I didn't want to. Okay, no big deal. I was thinking whether I wanted to get out of here, but no, I wanted to fight the battle. But now I'm not happy with having fought the battle because I put in a good percentage too. So I thought, well, if we had a good fight there, maybe we have a good fight there. That leaves us with one more thing left, which is the prisoner exchange. And 4 Prussians are being handed. We'll throw them into there near my forces, and 8 Austrians, which the important thing right now are actually Prague and Vienna. We don't want either of those to fall. So I'm going to throw these forces into Prague. I could put them in Dresden, which would be appealing. Oh, I'm not getting 8 though. Yeah, there's a quick way to win the game. Get some additional forces on the board. But that'll give Lacy some more forces so he can maybe challenge Fredrick again. I don't feel like he's a great choice to use for this, but he's all I got down here. Might be advantageous for me to get Brown down there, but I kind of like what's happening over here. If I can take Magdeburg, that cancels out the loss of one of these. I've got Dresden already. So as long as I can hold 2 of them, I'm okay. However, there's the horrible possibility that all of Austria could be captured, and that would end the game. So I've got to make sure that doesn't happen. And that is the end of the game turn. Right. Prussian side of the turn, Henry pulls into here because he's still demoralized, gets his extra forces, but he's actually inside the fortress, willing to take a siege, because Fredrick is heading up this way. Might run by this depot and try to challenge Brown and or the French and or the Russians. We got a lot of problems. Leaving Schwerin back here to begin the siege. And for the Allies, well, the French moved themselves 1 hex because they only have a 4 hex range on supply, unlike the Prussian allies. It's funny because the French actually get better supply if they're pro-Prussian. It feels to me like the Prussians and maybe Hanover should have the 5 hex supply, because honestly, they're the only sides that are ever that. One exception is Russia, and maybe the Russian scenario has special rules where they only have a 4 hex supply. And in fact, I ought to be 1, 2, 3, 4 more careful. I got to build a depot there. I was counting on the 5 hex. The Russians moved forward as well. They took a loss, and it's one of the problems with the Russians is they have to walk so far. They're going to take losses when they're doing forced marches in order to cover some of that distance, but otherwise you just don't get into battle if you don't take that risk. And that puts us over to the Allied side. And I should actually say coalition, not allied, but honestly, it's Prussia versus the world, so we're just going to talk about Prussian and whatever. So a lot of depot building on the coalition side. Lacy picked up some more forces, is moving up into Saxony. He doesn't feel like he can face Fredrick. Fredrick did not force march. It's just too dangerous to force march him. So he's kind of the slowest of the Prussian leaders. Yay. Yeah, I really don't like that. And that's going to put us here into June already. And, you know, you can see how light the game is and how quickly it kind of flows along. That's kind of the beauty of it. it really is a fairly fast-paced game. That was what dissuaded me from really loving it. You know, I wanted these broad, massive, games at the time that I got this. And to me, it was kind of like, yeah, this is a good magazine game, I guess, but whatever. And actually, I didn't even think it was that good a magazine game compared to things like Armada that seemed to cover a lot more stuff. But it's kind of growing on me in some ways. There's just certain things about it that really irk me. They don't quite work, For example, the not being able to force march with Fredrick comfortably. Now, in the scenarios, maybe it's not that big a deal because you're expending victory points to do things by losing strength points. But here, I'm expending my capacity to fight for the rest of the campaign. And it really seems telling to lose a strength point. You can see why strength points have a victory point cost, but their victory point cost in terms of the scenarios, I think, is less than at least the effect on me in terms of, wow, that's 2 strength points I'm losing in this game. But with Hanover in the game, it's probably more like 3. And it's only 2 because I spent, I grabbed 100% reinforcements already. One of the reasons I don't want to fight a battle with Henry, and why he's allowing himself to be besieged, but that's another story, is I don't, if I fight a battle, I don't have the initiative bonus. Initiative goes down to 0 for everything except retreat, which means I lose the advantage of, his fairly high initiative compared to Brown for who won the battle in terms of the maneuvering after the battle, etc. Anyway, let's discuss what's happened. Schwerin is continuing with his siege. Fredrick moving up here. I'm not sure I really wanted to do this, but I got to go through the mountains somewhere, and I might as well set up a supply route. 1, 2, 3, 4. I just have to move here and back. That's cheaper than setting up a new depot, and then continue marching on. I don't have another leader that I can dispatch. Could I have given someone up here? No, Schwerin doesn't have a leader under him either. But the effects of that are the French are nearly at Magdeburg. Brown and Rutkowski have moved up to Dresden. Now, there may have been a reason for me to sit there. Well, no, because I could bring both units in an attack. And the Russians have pushed forward and will begin building their depot for furthering their expansion towards Prussia. They're getting themselves into a good position, honestly. And let's see. That's about it. Once you build the chain of depots through Poland, although this doesn't work in any of the scenarios, but because the campaign doesn't get rid of the depots, you just abandon them, it becomes a lot easier to move through Poland. You've set up the supply chain already. You just have to actually walk and take it, which slows your rate a little bit, but not much. So it makes the advance through Poland a little easier than it is in the normal campaigns. However, I think there are campaigns where the Russians actually start fairly far. And let's just see what we got here. 3741. That sounds pretty far back. Yeah, that's way back there. Just trying to see if the Russians are ever closer, which would make this difference make sense. And I do not see the case. So, honestly, they would have to set up their whole, path through Poland every scenario. So they almost never make it very far. You know, the attack on Berlin is actually a pretty big deal. You really have to run with the Russians to succeed in that. I forgot to roll I took the Allied turn and I forgot to roll the siege result. So let's see. We get a 7. We don't want to lose strength points for various reasons. Actually, we're kind of screwed no matter what. But we're going to grant honors of war. Those are going to go to Prague. We actually have a problem. We don't have enough strength to build another depot. So this is as far as we go. And we're going to have to send Schwerin up to join. Now the question is, do I want to make any rolls? I am going to roll for the Allies have gone already. Building depots here and here. And I really can't do much. I mean, I could forge ahead with the Russians. I can move more quickly with the Russians than I am. They could leave 10 strength points behind and march the rest of the army forward. That's a good way, I think, to get them killed. But Lacy has made a quick jump forward, and who is that? Destroys is besieging, is preparing for a siege of Magdeburg. He hasn't started building the depot yet. I'm going to move Schwerin, given that he succeeded, and try to get him up toward that depot. Because if I can get to that depot, then I have a better supply route for Fredrick. Ouch! Lost a strength point. Late June turn, the Prussians got a bad die roll for movement and weren't able to move Fredrick, etc. very far. Lacy has joined Brown. Russians moving forward some more, ready to set up another depot. Standard process. French starting to build their depot for sieging Magdeburg. We're, you know, in a pretty good position here with the coalition. Berlin under siege. Fredrick has to do something about it, so I force march with both my forces, and both of them lose a strength point. Schwerin sets this up. We've got Fredrick still in supply here. What he needs to do is destroy this depot, and he's threatening it. But it's the Austrian turn. They have a chance of successfully sieging. Now, what happens if they successfully siege? I'm not sure. They don't want to grant honors of war. I doubt the Prussians want to surrender. So we may just see an exchange of a huge quantity of troops here on both sides. I don't know who that favors. I think smaller numbers of forces kind of favors Fredrick, actually, so the trade-off might be better, just because then his leadership qualities come more in hand. But I have to worry. There's big French and Russian armies that, you know, it's not just the Austrians I'm worried about here. A 3, I remoralized the Prussians here. I don't know who the leader is. Leader's a 2, so we're just at a 3, which has no effect across the board. And this is where the stacking definitely is a problem. Something like that. You know, some little army force counters and stuff would make sense, especially with the hidden movement, hidden force quantities. But that looks like that's the end of that. The Prussians are all in supply still, so we just push this down. A bit of time, the fact that this failed is key, because now the Austrians are out of supply. Fredrick got a good roll this time for movement, went and overran the supply depot that was back there, and is now in a position where he could build his own depot if he wants. Coming off Kustrin, it's a little far, but the big thing is the Austrian army is out of supply back there, and it will not be able to trace off the French depot that's being built. Sure, this game is, it's hard to bring an opponent into a battle, except during their turn, when you have to risk your forced march problems, which obviously the Prussians have more of because they have better leaders. You know? Now, I'm assured to be able to hit here. However, I want to see whether or not Henry can reach, though, so I'm going to force march with him first. Oh, I forgot to roll the French. The French have a siege. And the Russians have built their depot. Let's roll the French siege first. That has no modifier. A 4. That's a breach. I'm willing to do the trade because this is a French force. I'm willing to take losses on the French, so the Prussians will surrender instead because they're not willing to trade for the French. But that means the French have captured Magdeburg, which is one of the biggies. Game's not over immediately. Could it be? Yeah, I believe it could. I believe it could be at the end of the year if this position is there. I haven't counted the victory points to see if we're in range, but we have the 5 out of 6 right now, right? Dresden, Magdeburg, Prague, and Vienna is, 4 out of 5. The only one we don't have is Breslau, which we're allowed to be missing 1. So we're in a position where we're threatening things, and I could go around and count all the victory points to see what a danger it is. But as far as I'm concerned, I don't ever want to let my opponent have 4 out of 5 because, so that's kind of important to keep in mind. But now we have the Prussians, and I want to see if I can get Henry down there. And if I can, I want to try to destroy Brown's force. He has no reactive capabilities during his own turn. So first Henry. A +2 is 6. He's going to lose his strength point, and I'm going to leave someone in the garrison. These are all in garrison. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but I have to lose another one. And then Fredrick, who almost certainly will also lose a strength point. But these don't count against my losses for the, for the battle. They do count against victory points. Yeah, there's another one. I was trying to express they do count against victory points in the scenarios, but we're not playing a scenario. And here they count against what troops I'm going to have for the next period. All right, so this is the battle setup. 2, 3, Frederick's attacking 4. That's 36, 38, 39 to 20, 30. 30 to 39. That's going to be at least 2/3, and we're up +1 against Brown. You can't choose to decrease the odds that you're attacking at in this game. Oh, just a 2. That's 15 to 10, but with a leader loss check. I think I can lose Rutkowski safely because he's the only Saxon leader, which means he just keeps coming back. Although it may be that a less effective leader, one with a 0 combat ability, comes back. But I'm afraid that Saxony is going to get lost, so I want to kill Rutkowski there for the leadership. But let me calculate out the losses as well. Pretty correct victory. We each lost 4 in it, which means all I win by is the 1-point edge that Frederick's initiative gives over Brown's. Brown fell back to Torgau. And now we will exchange prisoners. This will just go back to Torgau. This one, I don't know what to do with. I'm not going to put it in Berlin. That's in too much danger, I think. I don't really want to lose it, so I'm going to throw it further back to where it's more likely to survive. And what is this? Did I lose a unit? Did I, have 8 strength points too few in my battle? Shit. That's the case. So actually, I was at 30. It was 38 to 39. So actually, more Prussians should have been lost, which would have prevented the battle. I'm just going to leave it as it is. Say those units were hors de combat. Probably shouldn't have done that, but whatever. They were late arriving. But yeah, There's a reason I like firepower tables. Firepower tables don't have this problem. They may not be correct, though. You know, there's something about this system that allows Fredrick to kind of match some of the realities of of how, you know, he could win battles even though he was outnumbered, and he could win battles even after taking more losses sometimes, but then he would capture enemy troops and such not. So some of this reflects that in a way that doesn't seem intuitive, you know, but it always bothered me about the Freddy the Great game. It just felt to me like, hey, that doesn't make sense. But it may be the way of sort of cutting the Gordian knot of how do you handle the fact that he was winning battles, especially when outnumbered, you know? It's just sort of a craziness thing. I gotta look up what to do about Rutkowski. I don't know if his counter sticks around or what. Kind of an interesting situation. Sweden and the Empire only have one leader, is what they say. Rutkowski's Saxony. He's their only leader. And they have kind of a, therefore, if this only leader is killed, they get a replacement of the same leader. They don't say anything of the sort for Saxony. I'm going to say with the Saxon troops diminished as they are, maybe it makes sense to just say, screw it. They have to stay in garrison from now on because there's not a special exclusion for that. I think one could make an equally valid argument for Rutkowski should be an infinite leader, but the problem is with infinite leaders is they always take them into battle with you because you can kill them off and they'll come back next year. Certainly for the, I probably will do that if Saxony's still around by then. So I'm going to leave this kicking around out here and allow them to regain that. And yeah, we're not seeing leaders captured, which is probably a good thing. But yeah, we're seeing, must have flipped somehow. We're seeing definite attrition among leaders. And Rutkowski's a free loss is basically what it comes down to. And I don't really like that, but I feel like, one of the few limitations in the game is that, oh, look, you only have so many leaders and you can't afford to lose them. Well, Prussia may have just been handed an opportunity. We'll see how this works out. I don't know what the strength points are. I'm stupid this way. I really should have checked this out, but first of all, the Russians have made it to Königsberg. The Prussians were setting up a depot here. I can't cut off the Prussian supply. If I cut off the Prussian supply, they could march in and attack and try to defeat in detail. But I've gathered the French and Austrian forces together. Now that's in a single location, and it's quite possible that the Prussian army can hit them with an advantage because Braun may not be as strong as it seems. Now a French leader ran off this way, but he went with no troops. Prussia doesn't have to know that. He's just picking up the depot garrison. In fact, the Russians are probably going to send somebody back to grab depot garrisons and clean them up as soon as Königsberg is taken. Once I can make, not Königsberg, I'm sorry, Coburg, right? Yeah. As soon as Coburg is taken, I can then use that as my base of operations for Russian forces in Brandenburg, and that fixes everything. But right now, I've got this kind of annoying position. You want to make sure you don't have things on the garrisons when we get down to the winter, but winter doesn't really happen for quite a while. I thought I did not make a mistake with the Austro-Hungarian side. They have more troops than the French do, so Braun gets to be in command, which is a big deal. And let's see, Frederick's attacking them. So where we got 24, 48, 50, 51, 56, 57, 24, 32, 33. That's close. 57 to 33. 33 is attacking 57, so let's see if this works right. Never sure which way I want to go through. So we're at 0.57, which means we're actually down at this. We wouldn't be allowed to attack if we were below 0.3. I don't know what happens. I guess the attack just doesn't happen. But, and Fredrick's at +1. However, he has a lot less forces, which means the percentages won't necessarily hurt him as badly. So we'll see. So we get a 4, which gets us to 20 to 5. That's probably not good for the Prussians. We lost 4 more Prussians than we did Austrians. -1 for Fredrick's capability means 3. So I've got 3 captured Prussians. And he's going to have to retreat then. Not a good result. We're entering August. Fredrick's got a serious problem. He has already lost 4 of the things. Magdeburg, Dresden, which he never had, Prague and Vienna, which he never had. So that's 4 of the 5. Breslau is still available. If the Allies end up with more victory points total, and they probably have more, I believe this is going to be over if I don't do something about it. All right. Well, it's got to be more than 200% of the victory points in cities. So I can calculate that out and see what we're looking at. I've got a fair amount, but I'm not sure. You know, I've got a lot of stuff garrisoned back here in France. It kind of feels like this is the moment where I have to decide: do I have to fight another round? do I have to do I have to fight this? And maybe the answer is no. These guys are probably not going to be able to make it yet, and we get to exchange some troops. That's kind of an advantage. I'm active now. But I may want to pull back a little bit. Now, the best he can get is a 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if I pull back to about here, I'm in range. Berlin. Where's Berlin? It's only 5. Magdeburg's a big 10. You know, this is. I'm gonna have to count the troops, but basically the point is that when I get my replacement points, I'll be able to use them and grab them and give me a little bit more of an edge in combat. But as things stand right now, those Allied forces, I have to defeat them. I can't just run away from them or anything reasonable like that, because they will be able to capture another city at least, probably a couple more in the course of the year. I got to see where the points lie, but I think pulling back a little bit is the best move that I can do, and then see where they go. Let me do a count on the victory points though, because that's actually what we're really looking at here. As they stand right now are 85 to 50. There's an extra 5 points here, so that brings it to 90 to 50. I need 10 more. That should be 2 more cities. I have to defeat the Allied armies somehow, one way or another. I don't know which Allied armies. I don't know what I want to do. So let me take a look. 1, 2, 3. Let's move to here instead. That gets me in position. There's an extra strength point here. I could grab a couple of points from Kustrin, but that loses me some victory points that I'm going to need deployed. But basically, I'm right at the edge of that 200%, right? That's what it is, or is it more than 200%? So yeah, if they're double and we're close, there's an issue. And I don't even know where we're at here. We're probably going to want to move forward and try to set up a depot so that we can keep pushing forward, because the French can't go beyond the depot range. So then on the Allied turn, or the coalition turn or whatever, we have the French able to start building a depot, the Russians building their depot there. I hope I don't already have one there. They're sending a leader back to go start gathering up troops, but I can't gather these up until I take Coburg, so it's kind of like I need to march all the way back and start grabbing forces and moving them into place. And how exactly we want to do that, well, we'll see what the timing works out as. But right now I'm sending a Praxin back to take care of that. Just like I've done over here, I'm just slowly shifting forces, for the winter already. But, if the game's not over by then, I want to protect my forces as much as possible. With the exchange of troops, the nice thing is the Prussians get their troops right here, the Austrians, it's way back there. And getting into the autumn now. On the Austrian initial move, the Prussians have already moved. You can see they moved up close to Berlin. Russia and France set up their depots. I could try to go march off and attack Fredrick, but that doesn't really help me. Attacking him during my turn doesn't do it. If he's willing to be attacked, sure, but he has the advantage on the attack, so he's probably going to pull away. Question is, of course, whether or not he's willing to spend a potential strength point in order to attack during his own, well, no. He'd be spending a potential strength point to get away so that he could move and attack on his own turn. Defensively, he's got a disadvantage comparatively because he's a better attacker. However, the odds might go in his favor. I don't know which way to go, except that if I go marching off, there's a chance he can run around, kill my depot, kill one of my units, and basically kill 2 strength points for almost nothing, for really no cost to himself. I could probably cut off his supply, but he could probably run away. It's just really kind of, no, you don't want to attack during your own turn ever. So I think we're going to hold off and see what he does and just try to push forward to get the siege of Berlin going. We've taken enough of his forces away that I think we got a chance of Brown alone being able to take Fredrick on at this point. Brown's got the majority of the forces anyway, but I don't want to make any decisions basically that might cost me. So we'll push this out here. And it's hard to tell which way to juggle things, but I went with, hey, let's make sure we get the attack bonus, whatever that is. I don't know if that's better. Basically, we'd be looking probably here at even, which looks like attacker takes about 10% to 20% for us, versus here, which looks much worse. Yeah, we're going to let the coalition attack us, I guess. Okay, so we're looking at 24. As a matter of fact, I don't know if we have a choice. Yeah, they intercepted us. 24. It's really hard to tell what should be done, but my numbers are bad. So 24, 28, 29, 31, 51 to 24, 25, 26, 27, which puts me in the 150% to 199 at even. the attacker takes 10 in a loss, and the defender takes 25%. Ouch. And that resulted in 8-5, which resulted in 3 more Prussians being captured. I think the game is over. Oop, those are French that died. Always kill the French, and I also killed D'Estrées. Hard question there, which is that, like, maybe a 0 initiative is kind of cool, but, you know, I can afford the every so often losing a strength point due to forced marches. So now I've gotten rid of my crappy French commander-in-chief and have a better force there. Fredrick ran far, far away. Maybe too far. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, he's in there, I'll figure out. And now we have a siege of Coburg there. And it looks like there's not much hope for him. 1, that's an attacker loss, except it's not. We have a benefit there, and it's only on negatives that you get an attacker loss. You need a leader there, which means it's prisoner exchange time again. And give this away, and this is an Austrian still. There, and that's about it, right? Let me just think. No, I cheated. This was actually the Prussian turn that attack happened in. We can leave the siege there, but now I have the Austro-French turn, and they will both be parked up here at Berlin and besieging that. They're not actually besieging it yet. They haven't built their supply depot, but yeah. And I moved this down already, so yeah. So I don't feel like I have much option with Prussia at this point. I've packed everyone up. I actually don't think I need to bring everyone because I know how many strength points are besieging me. So I'm bringing 17 strength points to 46. That gets me onto the I can still fight legitimately table. I can't attack below that. if I brought only 15, which would get me down to the lower attack table. And I don't see much the Allies are going to do in reaction. They're willing to take it. They have to build their siege in Berlin, so there really wasn't much option here. I think I rolled my movement point. Yeah, I think I rolled a 5. Maybe a 6. One thing before I roll the die, because I think the game's just about over here, is I was preparing to play one thing that I've never played before after this, counting on the fact that this was going to go several more years and probably take me at least the end of the week. But I've had to switch what my likely gaming plan is based on, wow, this is over fast. Anyway, +1 because Braun is still pretty good. We get a 5. I'm sure it's not good enough. 20 and an L to 5%. And that's not going to work out well. It didn't work out that badly. The smaller force, I only lose 3 strength points to 2 for the French. Now, came close. Prussia gets an extra point because they're a little better. Frederick's a little better on initiative, which means he's not actually defeated. And if the French want to stick around, and the Austrians want to stick around and fight at Berlin, they can keep doing so. I might want to pull the Prussians out, though, to prevent the coalition forces from being able to attack me. But if I do that, then they can conduct their siege. So maybe I just want to stick around and force them to attack if they want to conduct the siege, or I can attack if they don't attack. Again, probably a crappy odds, but I should have enough strength points. Certainly if I pull this unit in, I will. The fact that Fredrick was still there, that just causes a problem. He was able to run away and overrun the supply depot, which means these guys are no longer in supply and they can't go to the depot any longer. But I do have a chance for the Russians to come back. So, you know, I mean, we can still play this out and try to see what we can do. The 3 does not get us a breach. That's just a 1 initiative there. So we're still sieging. The Russians over there are still at it. And now here comes the problem. The French not only lost this strength point, they're going to lose another one for this stack being out of supply. They took that off a little early. It'll happen during the Prussian turn if they don't get out, if they don't get back in supply in time, which they're going to have to try to do. So I put that strength point back on top just to remind me. And now the Prussians probably want to fall back a little ways because, you know, we can see what happens. We don't necessarily have to fight the battles. Although what we're seeing is we're not so bad as long as we can attack, but we can't attack easily on our turn. If we move up here, they'll just run away. At the end of October, or halfway through October, Russians managed to take Kolberg. The Allied forces building another depot. Fredrick didn't want to intervene there. He's got too much of a chance of losing a strength point. Basically, he's not going to intervene anywhere where he kind of doesn't have to. And remember, we're pretty close to the point limit, but we're not there yet. We got the cities. The coalition's picked up the number of cities they need to get, but they haven't gotten quite enough points to be double the Prussian total. The Prussians kind of sitting down here in Königgrätz and all of Silesia and everything. They've got a lot of points. It's going to be hard for them to come back from this, though. Good thing I got lucky, because counting factors, you know, in my head, I thought, wow, you know, we killed off a couple of French points, blah, blah, blah. So I marched in with Fredrick to attack this base. I'm just at the 1 to 3. But that's fine. I'm down at 14, which is awesome. Could have taken the 15th one, but then I wouldn't be in supply coming out of Berlin, and that would cause me problems, right? And so I'm at +1 on attack, and let's see what we get. This is on the Prussian side. The coalition did not want to force march or anything like that. We get a 6. That goes up to a 7, so we take 20 and a leader versus 10, which sucks because we're eating into our good leaders here. Let's go Ferdinand instead of Henry. Henry's better than Ferdinand, but, you know, we're cutting into these. The supremacy of Fredrick is beginning to show up. I've got 3 strength points I lost. Because I'm a smaller force, I killed 4 at the 10%. You know, this combat table is weird. That means I capture 1 +1 for Fredrick's advantage. So we're going to have some French captured here. And we demoralize the enemy, chase him out of there. He's going to lose his depot. And they all move with bronze movement rate. And they're going to fall back quite a ways. And that changes the nature of things, because now maybe Magdeburg is open. Who knows? Maybe they're not going too far in November. Allies moved forward a little bit, but couldn't force Fredrick to either withdraw or into a battle. And he doesn't want to make a roll to see if he loses men. Because he's probably pretty close to that 1 to 3 limit again anyway. Oh, I forgot to move these guys. They should have moved. 1, 2, 3. Let's get them inside. The Russians are moving forward. And now, interesting thing about the Ruskies. Look at that big defensive value. That's the best in the game, and he's not the only one. Both Apraxin and Saltykov have that 3 defense, the same advantage that the Russians have in like Empires in Arms. They're good on defense. They certainly are. Anyway, we're trying to clear out the depots and move things forward. I think we're going to go another year. It looks like Fredrick's victory in the Berlin area has more or less made it so that I don't see an easy path to victory for the coalition at this point. I don't know. They're trying to build another depot. It's in range. Maybe they can make it. If they can take that and this, they're in good shape. But that's really pushing things. Fredrick should be able to stop one of those at least. We do have a prisoner exchange, though. And given the situation, I think we'll put the troops in Berlin and over here. Here, the French pulled out of Magdeburg with the excess forces to strengthen themselves. I should have been paying attention to the prisoner exchange situation. I might not have. I can always send a leader over there again, but I might not have gone forward there. We're getting close to winter, though. And everybody's made it into winter quarters, except for this guy. I don't have a chance of getting a leader down there in time to get him out of there this turn or anything, so he's just going to die. We're essentially at the end. Basically, the Prussians moved up here. That convinced the Russians to run away. The Allies, the French and Austrians managed to say, well, we got our depot down. Screw it. We're moving back to Magdeburg. We got a good roll. Let's not take any more losses. So I believe we're at the end of this year, to 1757. Went through about an hour on this one, which is about right. Things look really, really grim for the Prussians again, but we'll see. If they survive a year, maybe they can pull something out of their asses here. And beyond that, what do we got? I don't think much. I think we have that this will die, and that because nothing can come out of winter quarters once the winter turn starts, which is the next turn. And we go through the force calculations and such now for the phase, which, see what we got. I think that's what we're doing, is force increments next. Diplomacy, force increment, commitment, yeah. So, figure out what percentages we need to increase by. Prussia doesn't have a lot to add to their force. Thinking less is more. Only spent 2. That got them 20%, which worked out to be 5 more strength points. They have like 23 strength points total on the board if you count all their garrisons and everything. I don't know if that was wise. But the Austrians are like, well, we're almost out of our counter mix. So they pulled only 50%, which got them another 19. They have like 38 strength points. Now we have to go, though, to the other belligerents, like France. What are these numbers here? Am I doing this wrong? Oh, that's the maximum SPs that they can have on the board at any one time. Okay. So that's not like some baseline. So we got to count the French points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 19. 19. And do I have a modifier here? There are modifiers in 1761. Okay. But I got a -1 for Hanover being neutral. So we said 19. I get a 1. That means I get 2 extra strength points for France, which isn't terribly useful. We'll put that over here. I'll figure that out. The only other power in play, oh, Saxony's still in play. They have 2 strength points. They'll get Rakowski back, and they're not going to get any troops. They get 10% of 2. It still counts as 1 off the chart. I'm going to have to look and see if that's what's supposed to happen from the belligerent commitment. You round up, and I found that kind of weird. I certainly wasn't counting on that. That's going to have to go here. And then the Ruskies. The Ruskies are the interesting one because conceivably they could switch sides. They have no modifier. They'd basically need a 1 to switch sides. That would be a major advantage for the Prussians. But it doesn't happen. They get plus 10% troops. Before I do this, let me make sure I've got my victory points right. I'm not going to count them online, but yeah, that's something before I allocate my forces. Oh, by the way, neither the Austrians nor Prussians got extra leaders. I have not rolled for the other powers. I don't have to roll for Saxony. But for France, France is going to get 2 and lose 1. And Russia is going to get 1 and lose. Potential problem already, Russia and France are already out of their leader counters. Now, my understanding is more leader counters were added for the Avalon Hill version from the original. Maybe I'm mistaken there. It was something I read somewhere that I remember reading somewhere. I may be incorrect about that. And now I am going to go back and count those damn points. It was a wee bit off. It was 85 to 55, not 85 to 50. I don't know where I missed counting something, maybe here or something, but it's still not enough points. The Prussians have to allocate their forces. Now, here's the problem, what the Austrians do first, but here's the problem with the Prussians. I do not get more leaders. The Austrians have enough leaders. They can commit to a couple different sides. Prussia's in serious danger. They've got 2 leaders left. I lost Schwerin even. All I've got is, or I lost Schwerin, I lost Ferdinand. All I've got is Fredrick and Henry left. That's not enough for me to cover all my bases, you know. Fredrick may be able to handle in here and maybe put Henry down here, but that means 1 leader loss, and I could have Fredrick dead, and then I'm pretty much doomed. Or Henry, for that matter. I mean, you know, if I lose my leaders, I'm in trouble. The leaders in the strength points, seeing what's stacked out there, I just don't feel like I have the capability to defend the Silesian areas as well as Berlin. So my hope is to be able to defeat that Allied army. So I've clustered my forces together there, and maybe I can bounce back and forth. There's no hope coming from Hanover or anything like that, unfortunately. The thing that would have really helped me is if the Russians had switched sides, because then I could start marching them down, you know, to cover maybe Prussia itself and start Frederick down here. But without that in place, I just don't think I have a snowball's chance in hell. You know, I could take a risk. I could have taken a risky move, like invade Swedish Pomerania or something like that, in the hopes of bringing Hanover into the battle at this point. But I just don't see it right now. And with the French ensconced at Magdeburg, there's not much Hanover can do. They can't like cut the supply line for the French or anything like that. In fact, I'm not sure why I have French troops over here. They're not generating victory points. All they're doing, ooh, you know, I think I counted a couple of these though, which I shouldn't have. So actually the coalition is not in as good a shape as I thought they were. They may have trouble winning this next year as well. But yeah, we're ready to start 1757. And let me recount my points just to give you a recap on what they actually should be. It's actually 75 to 55, so I have a little bit more play, which means maybe I can lose Berlin or something like that, which is only worth 5. in exchange for battles. I still think I'm best off letting the Austrians try to attack in Silesia, but there's a lot of points in Silesia, and that's a danger. I don't feel like I have to take the same gung ho view of, well, I must defeat them to get Magdeburg back and maybe Dresden as well, so that if I lose Breslau, which is pretty far and kind of questionable. But on the other hand, if I'm not here, it's only 3 cities that have to go, and the Russians can certainly take, one of them, in the coalition, probably one of them, and that means there's just one more city for all of Prussia to just fall in an absolute surrender. So I've got to defend the heartland, and I think I can afford to make Silesia expensive in the sense that they have to siege every city in Silesia. Right then. So up it goes, and that's 1757 to start. It's the start of 1758. My bad.